Should you wish to study music at the university, it is advisable that one study it in combination with a more traditionally academic topic. In recent years, we have seen a rise in the number of students interested in studying a combination of music and occult studies. The music department aims to develop an appreciation of music amongst the entire student body at Miskatonic University, as well as to offer conservatory-level training to those pursuing careers as professional musicians. To these ends, the department offers introductory courses in music history and music appreciation designed for even the most novice student of musical arts, as well as advanced coursework in musicology, composition theory, and conducting. The Occult Studies program is unique to Miskatonic University and therefore has attracted top scholars from around the world. The term occult, from the Latin occultus, means hidden or secret. Perhaps ironically, the Occult Studies department is devoted to uncovering the secret knowledge of societies around the globe.
Father Dagon, written by Victoria Snaith, produced by Dreadfuls Theatre, and original soundtrack by Caesar. If you have enjoyed our podcast so far and would like us to make another season, please consider donating to Dreadfuls Theatre via Patreon or PayPal. Any amount is greatly appreciated. To find out how, visit dreadfulstheatre.com/podcasts. This is Episode 5, Frank Hall.
When I was a young man studying metaphysics at University Paris, I took lodgings in a strange and to me unknown part of the city. The street upon which I lived was the Rue d'Ossel. The building was almost empty, except for the landlord and one elderly German gentleman who went by the name of Eric Zahn. Zahn was a curious character, a mute who played viol with a local orchestra. During the time I lived there, Zahn never once had a visitor. He lived on the top floor, and in the early hours of the morning, after returning from his job at the orchestra, he stayed up to practice his music. And oh, what enchanting music it was. Zahn was, in no doubt, an extremely talented musician. Over time, Zahn and I grew closer. And although he never said a word to me, I was allowed to sit and listen to him play in those small hours of the morning. What happened to Zahn and I on that final night, not one sane man or woman on this planet would truly believe me. That night, in the apartment, the melodies, rhythms, and sounds, as though they came from another world, saved my life. As Zahn played his last song, I looked out of the window, and instead of seeing the twinkling lights of Paris, I saw the dark abyss, teeming with hordes of indescribable monsters. I tried to get Zahn to leave, to follow me, but he just continued to play. As I ran down the stairs, out of the apartment, and into the night, I heard his music behind me, fading as I ran, mingling with the nightlife of Paris. I wish I could say the sights and sounds of that night, as they fade into the clinking of champagne glasses and raucous laughter, had remained that way, hidden amongst the joviality of Paris, but they did not. Nothing could drown out the memory of that night, the sounds of the viol, the look in Zahn's eyes, the window overlooking the dashed and hideous abyss. It stays with me. Even now, it stays with me. After my experience with Eric Zahn, I never returned to the lodgings on the Rue d'Ossel. I found myself new accommodation and continued my studies of metaphysics. I tried to put the memory of that ghastly night out of my mind, but as the weeks drew on, I found it harder and harder to sleep at night. As I drifted into sleep, I heard the queer sounds of Zahn's viol, and frequently awoke with nothing on my mind, except the intense, all-consuming need to find the route to assail again. I tried to find the road. I asked friends, colleagues, market traders if they knew the way, but to no avail. No one had even heard of the street, let alone give me directions to get there. I looked at maps, talked to cab drivers, but no one could tell me a thing. Eventually, I entirely lost interest in my studies, quit university, and ceased my education in metaphysics. The constant lack of sleep made it impossible to focus on anything other than the memory of that night. If only I could hear Zan's music again, I am sure I would be cured. I am sure I would be able to sleep. I tried to learn all I could about musicology and unusual instrumentation, but still I could never find music that sounded quite like Zan's. In my unrelenting search for answers, I became a devotee of subterranean magical lore. I was convinced, am convinced, that Zan knew about the monsters through that window. The more I think back, the more I am sure his plan prevented those beasts from breaking through. Perhaps he too saw them, and was maddened by lack of sleep, like myself. Perhaps he was able to keep the darkness at bay with his music. What magic did his melodies weave? When I recall those nights spent listening to him play, long before I saw those dreadful demons, I had not realized at the time, but it is as though his music did not travel through the airwaves as normal music does, but instead and this will sound utterly mad, but it was as if his music, as soon as it was played, arrived in my mind. I wondered then how landlord let Zan play on it until such early hours. Surely the music, although beautiful, was a disturbance. Maybe Zan and I, and whatever those beasts were the only ones who could hear it. My growing interest in subterranean magical lore led me to Arkham, in America. The Miskatonic University Library is famous for its extensive collection of rare books, some of which I was sure could help me put this matter to rest. It has not been the case. I have found no information that can unravel the mystery of the monsters or the music. I began to feel that all hope was lost. I was becoming desperate. So many years wasted, so much time I could never get back, and so little sleep. I was walking along the Miskatonic River and thought how easy it would be to throw myself in, let myself sink to the bottom. That's when I heard it. Music. The sweet, enchanting, magical melodies that Zan used to play. But it wasn't Zan. It was a man whistling. I asked him how he knew that tune, and he told me he heard it from a sailor in Innsmouth. I'd never been to Innsmouth, but I had seen signs through the town. I had to go. I knew immediately I had to go. So now, here I am sitting patiently on the Arkham to Innsmouth bus, and for the first time in many years, I feel as though I can sleep.
You have been listening to Father Dagon, Episode 5, Frank Hall. The Professor was performed by Hayden Davis, and Frank Hall was performed by Morgan Baker. The soundtrack for Father Dagon was created by Caesar in a small apartment in Paris, overlooking a beautiful view of existential dread. Follow Dreadfalls Theatre on facebook.com/dreadfallstheatre. This week's Monster of the Week is
Kazalazaroo. Kazalazaroo
is a strange shape-shifting creature from the folklore and traditions of Scotland. Also known as the Green Maiden,
Kazalazaroo
sometimes appears as a woman, a goat, or a combination of the two.
Kazalazaroo
Will often appear by the side of a river begging to be carried across by travellers. The fate of such travellers varies from being simply led astray to having their throats cut. Like the podcast, tweet at Victoria_DFT or at King Caesar.